Okay, we're back. So I've just mixed up my resin. A couple of tricks I've learned or tips I would give you about mixing your resin. That's the boring part. And they say mix it for 3 minutes and nobody wants to, wait when they're a beginner. Two things. One is you don't want to whip it like you're whipping up a cake batter because you just get more and more and more bubbles, which then you have to contend with in using your torch and what have you to get the bubbles out, because otherwise you end up with holes in your work. So you don't want to whip it. And I have learned that it's best to sort of stir in a figure 8. Keep the stick connected to the bottom of your cup, because then if you go in and out, that's when you get a lot more air. So keep your bottom of your stick connected to the bottom of the cup. And I try to go in a figure 8, scrape, 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 figure 8 the other way, figure 8, figure 8, figure 8. And your resin, the art resin, will go through a period of looking very cloudy, and you keep stirring, and then it comes back to clear. Now I have quite a bit of bubbles in there even with that, but as it sits, they rise and they dissipate pretty well. I don't get a whole lot of I didn't get any bubbles in that. So occasionally you get a bubble and you end up with a little hole. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So once it goes back to clear and comes out of its cloudy phase, you're ready. And I'm using the resin tint, also by the Art Resin folks. I haven't explored a lot of other products yet. I mean, I've been doing this for about 6 months, and I've been very happy with the art resin, and I've been very happy with the tints that I've gotten. So I'm going to put a few drops of the white in. I mean, I'm putting in quite a bit because I want it to be, I probably put about 20 drops in because I want it to be opaque white, but I don't want to put too much so that it won't cure properly. That mysterious 8%. See, now this is still kind of, I don't know, translucent. It's not white like hard white, which is what I like for these bracelets. By the way, here's an example of what they come out like finished. This one I did a narrow band, 3 narrow bands, because I didn't want a big wide bracelet. This bracelet's going to be wider because I did about 1/4 of an inch of each. So it's it's probably more than that. It's probably about 1 inch thick. This one, but this is how it looks with I think it's fun to have the leaf. This is gold leaf. I do silver gold, and I have a coppery rose gold color. Encapsulated in the clear. So that's what it's going to look like at the end. But you can see I have it pretty darn white. That's pretty white opaque for summer. It's not like a milky, wimpy white. So that's my dilemma. I'm going to add just a couple more drops and hope for the best. So there, I put about 10 more drops in. This stuff kind of comes out quick, so I wasn't counting my drops. So let's stir that in. And the other thing is, you really, other than the big bubbles, you don't see the bubbles once you put the color in. So, and again, you always want to scrape the sides and the bottom. Okay, so I've got the white mixed up. I'm doing a number of things today. I'm starting with finishing off this bracelet with the white. And then I'm going to divide this into 2 smaller batches and do some green and some pink. So these molds are tricky. You get these molds at your basic, craft shop. You get them online. You see them everywhere. But it's tricky. It's tricky to pour it in. I found that you really need to be careful. You really need to try to pour it in. If you have good control and you can do a very tiny drizzle in here, more power to you. Otherwise, a lot of times when you buy these silicone cups, they come with these little tiny ones, and these are easy to control. If you're doing small areas, sometimes I do alphabets, I do different letters, and if you start pouring with this, you're going to end up with a mess. So sometimes I pour it into the smaller and do it. but that does take a lot of time. I'm gonna be a rebel and try to just pour this in, get it done, because I'm excited to move on to the colors. So let's see how this goes. And I don't want to pull this open because right now my bracelet that's in there is adhered nicely to the mold. If I start pulling this open, I'm going to get a gap, and then this new white is going to fall down onto the existing cured part and kind of make a big white blotch over the bracelet. So I don't want to do that. So I really just have to pour carefully. Get a good bead going and try to, oops, see, that's not what I recommend. That's what happens to impatient pourers. Okay, so I don't need a whole lot. That might be about enough. And then, this is my highly technical tool, the toothpick. And I go back in and I kind of just scrape around the edge, try to get that so that there aren't drips that will be sticking up from the bracelet. I'm trying to just release it all, let it settle, let it have as nice an edge as I can get, because it means less sanding and less fussing when the piece comes out. So I also kind of, the edge is where the bubbles tend to gather, so I'm also kind of trying to raise up bubbles and break them up. This is my favorite tool too. This is just a regular barbecue, Scripto barbecue lighter, but you get the regular ones that do the regular flame, like for lighting your candles and stuff. This is a torch flame, so it gives like a real pointed torch flame, and you can go around and sort of not just feather a flame over your stuff, you can actually pointedly aim it where you want it to be. And I like those. So I see a bubble, I take a look at it, I think it all looks okay. So I'm gonna set that aside, put a cover over it. I save all these very fancy things. Put a cover over it so I don't get dust in there, and move on. So now I'm going to do some green and some pink. I'm going to turn the camera. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm making a lot of components, and I want round flat discs. So I'm using the back side of my coasters, and I'm using those as molds for discs. I'm going to be doing those in green, 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 green. I'm also using the back of a ring mold to make tiny circles. These are like 12 millimeter to 15, 16 millimeter diameter discs. I want to make some, and then I'm going to make some of these. I just need to make some pink and some green. So let's see. Okay, come back over here, and we're going to take this and divide it up. I've got my white. The bubbles start to come to the top, which is good. It's degassing. I'm going to do about, I think I'm going to do about 2/3 green and a little bit of pink. So let me put some in here. Okay. And some in here. And you get quite a bit of working time with this art resin. I mean, I can sit here and puddle around for at least a half an hour, if not a little more, before it starts really starting to thicken up. So that's nice, because, you know, you want to think as you go and think of what projects you want to do, what other pieces you want to do. And if you have a little leftover resin, you know, you start grabbing other molds and making things. So, okay. So let's I'm dying to see this pink. So these are the Roxy Epoxy mica powder set I got online on Amazon. And comes with this tiny little spoon, and you don't need a lot of mica powder to really colorize this resin. So for 100 milliliters, I've been using about a half of one of these little spoons that comes with it. And so now I've got way less than that. I've probably got 25%. So I'm just going to use, I don't know, just a little bit and see, because I have never used this color. Let's see what it looks like. I'll set this one aside for a minute. Oh, it is pale. It's beautiful. It's actually really, really pretty. I don't know if you can see that with the lighting, but it's a very beautiful, beautiful pale green. Oh, I love it. Okay. You gotta keep scraping because you get that mica powder on your stick and all of a sudden you'll have a blob of it, you know, like food coloring. So you gotta really mix it up. Okay. So that's the green. What do I want to make with the green right off the bat? I think I'll make some discs. Switch you over here, and I'm going to pour some of these discs. I have my molds all cleaned out, but in this moment it takes to get set up, dust flies in. So, okay, they look good. Let's go ahead and pour some of these green discs. Now, I don't want these to be too thick, these discs. I use them to make components for jewelry. So I set stones in them. I attach them to each other and dangle them from each other or link them together. I do a lot of different things, so I don't want them too thick. I make them about maybe 2-3 millimeters thick. So I'll just finish these. And then I'm gonna pour one of these long molds, if I have any green left. So I'm done doing this. Okay, see, there was a little chunk of mica powder that I didn't stir up or something. Take it out. Okay, and then these little ones, I like to really fill them all the way to the top and dome them, because then they're finished, they're domed. These come out, you know, again, with that little bit of a concave finish, which I sand and then I dome with the UV resin. So these little ones, to save myself having to dome them, because this mold is not as deep, I go ahead and fill them up to the tippy top, and they get a beautiful domed finish right from the get-go. So that's, I absolutely love these little ones. Okay. The other kind of neat thing about these is you can stack them up to protect them from the dust. So get my torch going, give them a little quick torch. Boop. Just pop the bubbles, and I have to do that a couple of times because it's degassing the resin and it's coming up, and you always get a few more. I also love doing this giant one because I think it makes, you know, a really cool pendant or earrings. Sometimes I stack the components on top of each other. So I have one that I can make this big one. I'll make one big one while I'm here with the green. Okay, one big green one. And this is a tiny little mold that just makes a stud earring. And I like to have those to match my components in case I wanna, that one I overfilled, in case I want to dangle this off of a little stud earring post. And then these are my tiny ones for that I do in the back of the ring mold. I hope you can still see that. Let me move this over just to be sure. Scoot this one there. Bring this one over here. I love this green. Happy with the green. These Roxy mica powders are beautiful. And I'll play around with it later and see if I can get them. I'm sure the more you put in, the darker they get, because it was quite dark in the package. But if you want pastels, you just use a little bit. So fun. Okay, so all my little discs are made. Again, this is how dark the green is in the package compared to what you see in the mold. So yeah, it'll get that dark anyway. Okay, so I have a little bit left over. I'm gonna do this long leaf mold. Let me make sure you guys can see. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do this long leaf mold, which is a little tricky to do because, again, it's narrow spots. So I just try to get a little bit of a drip going. I could go to one of those little tiny reservoir cup things that I have, but I'll just wing it here and clean up the edge, the top edge. But fill it all up. And these make just, I haven't exactly figured out what I'm gonna finally do with these. They make just a beautiful three-dimensional but flat on the back, like a canthus leaf, laurel leaf thing that I think I'm gonna end up using on top of bracelets or to embellish other pieces with. I also could use this, you could use this in a tray and encase, make a bunch of them and arrange them the way you want and encase it in clear. It would be cool looking. So, I don't know. That's what's creative, is figure out what to do with each piece. Okay, so that's good enough. I kind of try to not get a lot of outside the lines, get my baby wipe. And the other thing when you're working on resin and getting started, you start with the big strokes and then you fine-tune your technique. I need to level this table because it's annoying that these things come out, or they tend to. I make a lot of clocks and I have to turn the things and shim the molds so that they stay flat. Like right now, this looks more full at this end than it does at this end. So I need to add a little bit more and then maybe shim up the end so that it stays put. Okay. And I mean, just like the tiniest bit, like put a couple pieces of paper under to keep it nice and level. Okay, so there's that. I'm not seeing a lot of bubbles. Give it a torch. It's fun to torch because you see the little micro bubbles pop. And as long as I have it out, I'll hit these guys. Okay, hit these guys. Hit this, even though it's a little crazy to try to hit that bracelet. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, good. I have a little bit left, so I'm going to make, I'm going to make a few of these gems. These gems are really cute, and they come out really cute. A few gems. I'm not doming these because I want the back to be flat so that I can attach them to other things. Oh, too much. Too much. Okay, so I'm going to stop and I'll show you when I'm done.